Hi everyone. Today's live stream is going to be slightly different and also a lot more rough than my usual thing because I'm going to show you my bookshelf using another camera, which you can see here, which is not actually a camera, it's my phone pointing downwards at the table over there. And I'll be sharing that in a little bit. Today's episode, I don't suppose there is any point introducing people to the fact that they may be listening to this as audio because they probably won't be, because this episode will probably not go on the podcast because a lot of it is going to be visual and I am not going to be just talking through it. What I will be doing is that I will start by showing you a bunch of books that I really like, and then I'll be checking the comments, and you can tell me what are the related books you want to learn about. And if I have such a book, I will find it in my bookshelf and pull it out and show you live right here. I'll show you, hold it to the camera, tell you what I like about it, what I don't like about it, and that's it. So, without much ado, this is, I hope this works. This is the book camera. Let me remove myself from the live stream. Can you hear me? Hold on. Yeah, let me know if you can still hear me when I remove myself. It seems I'm not audible. Guys, let me know in the chat. Can you hear me? Okay, you can't, right? Okay, so that is a problem. Let me see what can be done about it. Okay, I figured it out. Yes. So we'll do this. No, we'll do this. How do I make the book camera the primary one? Nope, that also doesn't work. Hold on. Who is Vijay Yender? Vijay Yender? Oh, sorry. I should change the name of this to book camera. Vijayendra is me only. It's my name. Hold on. This is mute. Here. I'm trying to make my camera chota and your camera big. Solo layout. Nope, that's not it. Oh, got it, got it. Exit solo layout. Now stop mic or camera. Nope, that may not work. Keep from studio solo layout authenticated. Anyway, we'll try to do this like this only. So what I will do is that I'll take my headphone off and go there and start showing you the books. You guys keep leaving comments and everything. The channel is monetized, so feel free to send super chats and stuff. Milind has already done so. Thank you, Milind, for 179 rupees. You are always very generous with independent creators. So let me start showing you the books. Yeah. So I'll bring the mic over here and I'll start by showing you a book called, a book that was very influential on my decision to become a writer. And that book is called It Happened Tomorrow. It's a science fiction anthology that is very close to my heart. And hold on, which is the right way? Yes, it's a compilation of science fiction stories written by Indian authors in Indian languages, but they were all translated into English and published as this book. It was, I don't think you can find it still. It was published by National Book Trust. I recommended this book a few years ago to a friend of mine who was able to get a copy of it. And I'll just show you the Suchi and you'll find out who all have written for this. There is a Marathi story by Dr. Jayant Narlikar, The Ice Age Cometh. Yes. And there is a turn off book camera mic. It is muted, I think. Isn't it? Or are you hearing audio double? So this book contains stories from Bengal, from in Marathi stories, Telugu stories, etc. They're all translated into English, and the book is called "It Happened Tomorrow." So if you want to, you can look for it. Then I have this one to recommend. It's called "The Final Reckoning." It's basically an account by. So there was this publication, Pravda, in Russia, and the correspondents from Pravda, along with the cartoonists, etc., went to the trials being held for, the accused of the Nuremberg trials, basically. The Nazis. A bit audio echo. Turn off book camera audio. It's not that big a problem, but let me see if I can turn it off. Mic is off. I don't know why it is still picking up. Okay, so what is happening is this. My audio is going into this mic. It's coming out of here, and then this phone is picking its own audio up. I have reduced the volume of this to as low as it will go, but I don't think that's helping much. So just put up with it, okay? I hope it's not too much of a problem. So that was the final reckoning. Then there is a book called. This book actually helped me make a lot of decisions in life when I was young, and it's called uh, "What Should I Do with My Life." It's written by uh, Poe Bronson, and this book is a basically one Poe Bronson going and interviewing a lot of people. This was before podcasts, by the way. So Poe Bronson going and interviewing a lot of people about their life decisions. So it contains interviews with CEOs who gave up their cushy jobs and became fish farmers. It has interviews with people uh, who were basically people who made radical decisions in the middle of life to change their life because they were obsessed with the question of what should I do with my life, because a lot of times you think that you want to do something and you do it, and there appears a vacuum at some point. And I, after reading this book, came to two conclusions. One was that I don't want to be one of those people, because I want to get on the right path right away and not make a mistake and not feel in the middle of my life that I was doing something that I should not be doing or that I was wasting my time. And I will tell you from experience that that's not a war you can win, because life is not something that can be planned out. For the most part, I have remained on my path. I have remained a creative individual, uh, a creator, basically. And 10 to 20 years ago, there was no way for someone like me to do the things I do. Now there is. And it is even possible to sustain yourself using work that you do, creative work, etc. So this book was a landmark for me. I don't know if everyone who reads it will come to the same conclusions about life that I did, but it's a I would still very much recommend this book to anyone who is young, or even people who are in the middle of life and wondering if their life is going the right way. Is People ask about life changing books, right? And I say that no one book can change your life. This was one of those books for me. As you can see, it's quite old also. There is dog eared pages and stuff. So yeah, that was this book. Then there are a couple of science fiction and fantasy novels. One is The End of Eternity by Isaac Asimov, and it's about if you've seen the Marvel series Loki, then you will like this because it contains an organization that exists outside time trying to moderate history. And Taranga says, "Hey, I have done that only, left it all at 40." Taranga, you're in the same field. These are people who made radical decisions, like left, sold their homes, sold their companies, everything, and went to another part of the country or the world, acquired completely different identities, and lived the rest of their lives and did not go back. You are still a social worker who lives in roughly the same area and does similar kind of work. Moitador says, "Wow, this new lookout is cool, and finally the legendary bookshelf is getting the long due episode." I I'm obsessed with clarity and order. So what this layout looks to me is that it's very clunky, but I'm glad that people are finding it useful. Then there is a book called Children of the Lamp, the Akhenaten Adventure. It's basically a story about a brother and a sister who, it's basically something that was a contemporary of the Harry Potter series of books, and this is if I read the blurb of it, where is it? Nope, there's no blurb. It's a hardcover. Damn it. Anyway, this is basically a brother and a sister who are in Egypt with their parents, and they find a lamp, and there is a jinn. And these jinns are not like what you hear about in Aladdin type of stories. It's it's a proper fantasy thing, and I really liked it when I read it. But that was, I think, about 15 years ago, and I really like it. This has remained in my memory because that was a time when fantasy was truly coming into its own, thanks to Harry Potter and the popularity that it got. But and I think the publication I was working at asked me to write a piece about alternatives to Harry Potter, and this was one of the books that I wrote about. I'm not sure if it ever got published though. I don't think it was. Maybe I didn't write it. I don't know. I don't remember. Then there is hold on. Then there is this graphic novel by Scott McCloud called Zot. I love the cover here because you see there is a portal and a boy is coming out of it, and he's holding a girl who is on this side of the portal. Zot is the story of two parallel universes, and a boy from another universe who falls in love with a girl of this universe, and the boy has superpowers. He's like a superhero or something. But you see that this boy comes from a very bright world, and that bright world, the light from that bright world is causing his face to fall into shadow, and the girl's face is lit by the light that is coming from that other world. um, this other world that Zod comes from is basically Earth only, but a parallel reality where there was no Second World War. Like I remember one scene where this girl says, "Wait, you didn't have a Second World War?" And Zod says, "Nah, we figured once was enough." So it's very interesting in the way it tackles, and it's obviously got gorgeous artwork. This was one of the books that caused me to start taking an interest in drawing. I still just doodle, but my drawing got much better after I uh, read this one and some other books by Scott McCloud. He talks about the principles of uh, perspective art. Then there is something called Sampurna Nagayana. This is a Raj Comics epic. It features Nagaraj and Super Commando Dhruv, and it's kind of sort of a parallel retelling of the Ramayana with Nagaraj as Ram and Super Commando Dhruv as Lakshman. And I love this comic for so many reasons, because if you have been reading Raj Comics for any length of time, you know that their storytelling has kind of become stale in some places. Things are changing now, but in बीच में एक टाइम था जहाँ पे उसके उनकी बहुत सारी स्टोरीज काफी स्टेल लगती थी. Nagayan was such a revolutionary thing because they were unafraid to do things uh, that were radically different from what they had done, and that's why I like it. But if you are not into Hindi comics, this may not make much sense to you. Somebody, Vishwas says, "Have you categorized or ordered books to prep for this video?" No, Vishwas, I have not. My bookshelf is uncategorizable. If you want, let me know. And in the future, when I do book camp stuff like this, I can categorize, I can have one video just to talk about books of a certain category. Jack says, "You don't watch movies. How much time you spend daily reading books?" Jack, actually, I'll tell you something. If you gave me a choice between reading a book and watching a movie, there was a time when I would have chosen books. These days, I choose movies, and I think I have gotten mentally lazy, and I don't like it. The reason I'm doing these videos is because a video about books is because I want to get back in touch with the reader inside me, and the reason I want to do that is because uh, I want to read more regularly. The only yesterday, by the way, I was on a podcast called The Skeptic Show. The link is in the community tab if you want to listen. And I was talking about the interviewer Saurabh asked me if I was locked in a room for 2 days, what books and movies I would take with me, and I said I would choose books, and I instantly realized that I was not that person anymore, and I hated it. So I want to start reading regularly once again. It might also help me with the uh, we get so much bad news through social media all the time, and books are something that you cannot find a distraction out of. So that also is something that I want, like for my mental health, I want to start reading again. And the reason I'm doing this is because if I schedule one video like this every couple of weeks or once every month, then I will necessarily need to read books in order to talk about books. So that's there. By the way, everyone who's leaving comments, thank you. Have you read Sanderson books? Kashmir Universe? Monmon? No, I have not. Arumugam says, have you read manga? Yes, I have. I do actually. Uh, Taranga says that is very interesting. Thank you. Vishwas says sounds good. Sudipto says make a rainbow bookshelf. No, it is a booktube classic. I will have to look up what that means, but I think you mean uh, books put in a way that is more colorful. Do you accumulate ebooks as well? Yes, I do. In fact, I have more ebooks on my phone than I have books on the shelf, and there are like 500, more than 500 books visible on this bookshelf, and there are many more on in my Kindle. uh, I had a Kindle and it broke. Do you know why? My books fell on it. My Kindle broke. My ebooks, my ebook reading device broke because my paper books decided that they hated it. So paper books ka badala, I call it. Hashiman says, completely agree. I used to read like 20-25 hours on an average 5 years back, and then I used to procrastinate a lot to pick up a book. I recently started picking one up mandatorily for 5 pages a day minimum. Yeah, I want to do that again. Not just 5 pages a day. I want to read like one book a week again, like I used to. I used to read more than one book a week. I was a voracious reader. And that's how all this came into being. And now Netflix has ruined me. I think I'll disconnect my Netflix only. क्या मिलता है मार्वल देख देख के, सॉरी हॉटस्टार ओनली, क्या दिखता है मार्वल, क्या मिलता है मार्वल देख देख के. Taranga is laughing. Let me go to the next book. So this book is something I don't actually agree with 100%, but it's about internet culture, and I do think that this is an important read for anyone who wants to. इसके ऊपर बीच में बहुत सारा पानी गिर गया था, सूखने के बाद इसकी हालत ये है. It's called Free Ride. It's a book by Robert Levine, and it's about how the internet is destroying the culture business and how we can fight back. So it's about how, like, this book came out before uh, we all started talking about the creator economy, quote unquote. The creator economy meaning uh, writers, artists, filmmakers doing stuff and sustaining themselves with the creative stuff that they're doing. So Freeride was about how the fact that everything is free on the internet is actually hurting people who create culture, people like writers and artists, and that Silicon Valley fundamentalism about how information wants to be free is bad for culture. Because if culture does not cost money, then culture will not be able to sustain itself because the people who create culture need to eat food. And this book is basically about that. The man is very angry in this book, by the way. But and the points he makes are also kind of short-sighted, I think. But I like this book because this is a book that needs to exist. This is an actual problem, or at least was an actual problem about 15 years ago. Now not so much, with the advent of like people can become members of this channel. You know, like YouTube member, my YouTube channel has memberships, and you can sustain an independent creator. I'll just remind everyone for one more time that this channel is now monetized, and that if you want, you can become members of this channel. uh, you pay about 160 rupees every month. In return, you get special emojis that you can use in the chat, and a badge next to your name, and access to certain members only community posts, also access to the voice chat section on my Discord server. So that all is available if you become a member of the channel. Please do. Also, you can send super chats. Also, you can support my work on Patreon, patreon.com/Vimo. And if you want to just make a one-time contribution, you can do so at vimo.stck.me. Hold on. stck.me. Yeah, this is the URL where you can. This is the URL where you can go and make a one-time contribution. The contributions you make help me buy books, obviously, pay for software that allows me to create content, and pay bills and eat food. So there. Then we have then we have a book that is basically a manual kind of. It's called The Writer's Mentor, and it's a book that is basically like there are sections in it. This is an appetizer. If you are a writer and you are kind of starting with stuff, if you're a writer and you're kind of starting with stuff, and you need to understand what's a short story, what's an essay, what's a novel, etc., it's got basic definitions. Also, it has a lot of content that might help you uh, motivate yourself. Like there are quotes by short story writers and poets and novelists, etc., and they tell you about how the uh, different modes are different from each other. So this is a nice appetizer. If you know a young writer, if you know a school student or college student who's writing, you can perhaps buy them this book, The Writer's Mentor, edited by Ian Jackman. तो यहाँ पे बहुत सारों का ढेर लग गया है, इनको साइड में रख देता हूँ so that जगह बने. Then there is another one like Free Ride. This also is something that I don't completely agree with, but I think it's an important book. It's called The Cult of the Amateur. अरे यार. Hmm. Yes, The Cult of the Amateur, and it's a book by Andrew Keen. उसका blurb है How Today's Internet is Killing Our Culture and Assaulting Our Economy. Again, this is a book from the pre-creator economy days. I think these books can serve as history books now. Like you know how books about how blogging came into being are also legit history books now. So these books are very good in that respect. If you want to understand the state of the internet and the kind of worries that led to the creator economy coming into being, these are good books. Then there is a book that helped me a lot. This is a book that I loved when I was religious. This is the book that got me from religion to spirituality, after which I made the journey from spirituality to atheism, but that's a different journey. This book actually is called Illusions. It's by Richard Bach. And the thing that I remember about this book is that in one scene, somebody asks, what is the difference between faith and imagination? And they come to the conclusion that there is no difference. The only reason that there are different words is because 500 years, 600 years ago, people did not have a word for imagination. So they went by faith. And I know that's a very, surface level thing, but this book is very good. It's called The Adventures of a Reluctant Messiah. And this is the book that got me out of religion and into spirituality. And after that, as I said, there was a different journey, but we'll go through that some other time. Then there is a book called, this is a business book. It's called Blue Ocean Strategy. Blue Ocean Strategy by W. Chan Kim and Renee Maubourne. And this book is basically about how when these days people choose to go into business or start anything really, what they should keep in mind is competition. And a red ocean is where the water is red with blood because everyone is competing with everyone. A blue ocean strategy is where you go to a part of the ocean where nobody is competing, like an area. Like, I'll tell you something. Suppose you decide to start a YouTube show, and you are inspired by someone else who has a YouTube show, and so you start doing things the way they do, but you don't realize that there are 10,000 people who are already doing all that. So what you are entering is a red ocean because a lot of people are already competing with each other. But suppose you wanted to do a YouTube show that nobody else was doing. Suppose you were doing a YouTube show that is very different, and also something that only you can do because only you have the kind of experience that that kind of a show needs. So that's what blue ocean strategy means. Like, the strategy of not bothering with the red water ocean, going to another part of the ocean and starting something new. So that's what this book is about. And if you are any kind of creator, I think this book is very useful for you, because at the end of the day we are all kind of engaged in commerce of a sort. We'll look at the comments a little bit. College time books. Nazu says 20th century internet was different. Yes. Eman says business book. We more capitalist era. Vairu says Arumugam, Early Indians by Tony Joseph, if you want prehistory of India. Yes, that's a great book. And I have it on my phone, which I can't show you right now because the phone is being used as a webcam right now. Laksh says, hey, how you doing? For the recommendations, are you offering fiction or non-fiction? If the latter, anything riveting about medieval India, please. No, Laksh, I don't think I have any books which are about medieval India. I mostly read fantasy and science fiction, but historical fiction is not really my thing. एंड या आज का कोई एजेंडा नहीं है. फिक्शन, नॉन फिक्शन, बिजनेस, कॉमिक बुक, ग्राफिक नॉवल, सब कुछ आ रहा है. इन द फ्यूचर मे बी आई विल फोकस ऑन समथिंग. Okay. So then there is this book that you want to give to anyone who is young and wants to get published, because this book is called How to Get Published in India. It's by Meghna Pant, and the book is basically a manual for anyone who wants to write and be published. And they also teach you some basics about how to approach publishers, what things to keep in mind when pitching, uh, what to pitch where, and all that. So this is a very useful manual if you want to go into all of that. Then there is a science fiction novel that I bought at a half rate shop when I was in college, and I loved it. And it still has a very great impact on me. It doesn't have a cover, and so I put a cover on it. It's called The Wooden Spaceships. It's by Bob Shaw. It's by Bob Shaw. The story is basically about a planet which is, oddly enough, in a very close orbit with another planet. So close that their atmospheres actually touch. And therefore, uh, sometimes spores of planets, from spores of plants and trees, can literally fly off to the top of the atmosphere, get caught up in the atmosphere of the other planet, and land on that planet, and the trees can grow there. So these planets have had a shared ecosystem for a long time. And eventually, when human beings evolved on one of these planets, they also started traveling. And the way they traveled was by they built airships, right, with gigantic balloons. And these balloons will rise up in the air to the very top of the atmosphere, where the two atmospheres meet, and there they will flip and then land on the other planet. So they were basically space traveling in wooden ships. And that is what this story is about. There is also a lot of intrigue about the politics of the two planets and other aliens and a lot of stuff, but this is something I really like. Then there is this book which may be dated. It's by Jonah Blanc. It's called Arrow of the Blue Skinned God. Basically, I don't know if he's American or British, but this journalist took a trip across India on the same path that Ram is supposed to have taken in the Ramayana, like from Ayodhya to Sri Lanka, right? And he talks about the politics surrounding Ram, the politics surrounding Hindutva, India's changing face, how the various experiences he had on the way, how people in so many villages and towns think that their town has a special point where Ram stopped or something. And this book is quite old, by the way. But as a history book, maybe you might find it interesting. It's called Arrow of the Blue Skinned God. Then there is a book called, this book really helped me a lot when I was figuring out life, like work wise, etc. It's called Small is the New Big by Seth Godin, who is a writer about marketing. So the reason this book changed a lot for me is because this book has a weird format. There are no chapters in it. It's basically a compilation of blog posts by Seth Godin, and you can open it anywhere and read. Like I just randomly opened something, and here there is a chapter called competence. So there is a small essay about competence. Then there is a essay about how Gmail should have been a paid product or something or the other. And the idea is that the idea that Seth Godin is trying to sell or push using this book is that the age of the large corporation is over, and that the future is going to be comprised of many small companies or small, establishments, small businesses. So that is what this book is about, and I really like it. Then there is right. So there are two Penguin books which are basically kind of companion books. This is called the Penguin Dictionary of Religion in India, and this is basically a dictionary. Like the way you look up a word in a dictionary, you look up any religion. Like if I go to C, I see Gesu Daraz, Mir Gesu Daraz, one of the greatest Sufi saints of the Chishti order, born in about 1321, and it's got an entire entry on him. If I go to K, I find Kurahit, a term in Sikhism for an infringement of the Rahit or code of conduct of the Khalsa. If I go to if I go to M, I find Swami Muktananda, a guru or teacher of Siddha Yoga. So this is basically a dictionary of religious information from all over India, and it's very cool. I use it frequently when writing or referring to something or the other. And you see how this book has like rounded corners. There is another book that Penguin. I wonder if these are part of a series. There is another book of a similar nature. This is also a reference book. It's called the Penguin Companion to the Ramayana. This is also like a dictionary, but with reference to Ramayana. Like you can look up stuff. You can. It's not indexed the same way as the other book, but it's got maps. It's got information. Uh, you can look up stuff. You can look up the name of a character from the Ramayana and find out information about him without like if you had to find out who Chitrakoot was, Chitrangad was, you will have to read the Ramayana to find out. But the use of books like this is that if you don't want to go through the entire book, you can find out the relevant information very quickly, and these are reliable also. Not not Wikipedia basically. Uh, Nazo says, anyone else here jotting down all the titles? Taranga and Eman are talking. Uh, Aditya says, is Meghna Saurabh's sis? Meghna Pant? Yes, she's Saurabh Pant's sister. Or the Saurabh Pant is Meghna Pant's brother. Share says, also, if you think self help books are useless, then what do you think can be used to fill the need for those kind of books in our lives? I don't think self help books are useless, but I do think that at some point in life, you're supposed to grow past them. And that there is an industry called the self help books, and that industry is very much interested in making money out of motivation, the market for motivation that exists. Today, I saw Chetan Bhagat as a YouTube channel, and he's, let me just say, giving very questionable advice there. But he's catering to the motivation market. There are young people who need direction in life. Chetan Bhagat is unfortunately the face of literature in India to a certain extent, popular literature at least. So people listen to him when he says stuff. And the kind of things he's saying is actually not distinguishable from any meme that you find on Instagram. But the motivation market exists. And if someone needs motivation, I would definitely recommend motivational videos or books. But don't, how do I put this? I don't know how to put this honestly. Maybe I'll write something about this at some point. Motivation is a good thing, Too much motivation makes you slave to the language of motivation and keeps you away from doing stuff. There are plenty of people who get motivated and then remain in that state of motivation all the time and don't actually do the things that they want to do. So if motivational literature is keeping you focused on the literature itself and you are not having time left to do things, then well, it's kind of doesn't make any sense, right? I'll just thank Honeybee for the 100 rupee super sticker. Thank you, Honeybee. Much appreciated. किसी और का super sticker miss किया क्या? नहीं. Cool. So the next book is Perennial Seller. It's by Ryan Holiday, and I've spoken about this book many times. This book is, I don't want to call it a slap in the face, but it's uh, so a lot of people are creators. People make stuff, people write stuff, draw stuff, but they are not thinking about the shelf life of the work that they do. So what ends up happening is that they write a book and they don't want to market it. They don't want to be the people who tell people about the fact that they have written a book. They don't want to do social media. They don't want to advertise, etc. I would call this book a slap in the face of anyone who thinks that that is not important, because some of the greatest creators in the history of literature have been shameless self promoters. We don't see that, we don't remember them that way. We, when we think of them, we see nice paintings, portraits, etc., but these guys were going on the radio and talking non-stop about the books that they wrote. Perennial Seller is a unique book is because I have never seen the message of this book put in exactly the kind of language that you know we, is in here. And I have actually underlined a lot in this book, but I will just say that anyone can write a book, but a very specific kind of creator creates a classic. And this book is basically a way for people to understand what goes into the making of a classic. So that's that. Then there is this book called Subscribed. By the way, have you subscribed to this YouTube channel? Please do if you have not. Subscribed is a relatively new book, and it's about why the subscription model will be your company's future and what to do about it. This book is for companies, maybe, but I think individual creators can also relate to this a lot, because we are all kind of creating products for the digital age and we are all hoping to sell. What this book goes into is that the subscription model is increasingly going to be how the market works in the future. And if that is the case, big companies as well as small companies as well as small creators can take advantage of it and make a living. That's the goal, isn't it? Then there's this small science fiction novel by, I think this was something Neil Gaiman wrote with Michael Reeves. It's called Interworld. You look at the cover, there is one person, but that person is in three realities. So this is also a little bit like you, if you have read Loki, which was a Marvel series about the multiverse, the first thing that mentioned the multiverse. So what this book is about is that there is this boy called Jay or Jay, and there are Earths, right? There are an infinite number of Earths, and this infinity ranges from the magical to the scientific. So the Earth on that end of the spectrum is completely scientific, technologically advanced, and the Earth on this end of the spectrum is pura ka pura magical. And there is a J or a Jai on every world, just like there was a Loki on every world and a Tony Stark in every world in the Marvel multiverse. So this book is about this boy finding out that he can travel between worlds, and it's quite interesting. It never got a sequel, I think, and I think it would have been interesting if it did. But that was it for the books that I kept in front of me on the shelf. uh, what do you think? Are there any specific books, any kind of books that you want to talk about or want to see? Because there is a lot left on the shelf and I could not bring out all of it. We are 40 minutes in, So, what should we do? Let me turn off the book cam for the moment. Right. So, uh, Taranga says, we did not hear what you just said. What? What happened? Shreya says, I asked that because I have realized that motivational books are addictive, as in reading them gives you the good feeling that you should ideally be getting out of doing something productive. That is exactly what I was talking about. People get addicted to motivational books the same way people get addicted to anything these days. Social media basically works on this premise. Motivational books are usually of more or less the same kind of stuff. They tell you that the ambition that you have, hold on, the ambition that you have, uh, other people have had before, and if you think you can't do it, then here's a nice example from someone else who did do it, and you think, okay, if they could do it, I can do it. And it becomes something that gives your brain that drug like boost, and then you go from one book to the next, to the next, to the next, to the next, and you don't actually get out of it. I know so many people, and I perhaps used to be one such person. The thing that is wrong with motivational literature is that it keeps you in that loop of getting motivated. You're extremely motivated, you're constantly talking about the fact that you will do something, but you don't actually do anything. And I think there is a do you guys remember the movie The Secret? It was kind of sort of a documentary, and it said that there is something called the law of attraction. That's all bakwas, by the way. It doesn't work like that, because what The Secret was trying to sell you, is that being motivated is its own reward. And I don't think that is the true, unless the only reason you're doing it is to feel nice. If you do want to achieve something, if you do want to get to a goal, then in addition to being motivated about it, you're also going to have to put in the work. So The Secret tried to tell people who are not putting in the work that just by being motivated and believing, they're doing something. And they're not really. They become obnoxious. I was obnoxious. Yeah, I can do it. I can like, you know, I believe, wagera wagera. It's pseudo religious. It's not proto religious, not semi religious, I suppose. Hmm. Vishal says motivation attained through these videos can also lead some to judge others instead of sympathizing with them. Depends on the details. That's true. That's true. Moitador says Vimo self help books are like workout videos on reels. Yes. Eman says, yeah, there is psychology behind this. You're vicariously living through what is written in the book. You're also essentially visualizing, even daydreaming about your ideal self and ideal life. Yes. Vishwa says, no sapiens. I'm surprised. The thing about Sapiens is that there has been so much said about this is that I can literally not add anything to it. It's a great book. I would recommend everyone read it. And I hope that everyone also goes through the books that went into, I'm not sure if Sapiens had an index, but I'm sure it had sources. Go through the books that inspired Sapiens also. Those are also worth a look. Hmm. Nazu says, what is the first sci-fi you read? I think it was The Time Machine by H.G. Wells. But I'll show you. I actually have the book. Abbreviated. I bought it at a book fair. Hold on. Where is it? H.G. Wells. I wish I could search my bookshelf by Internet of Things. Yes, that is what I need. Think it's here. Hold on. Yeah, there it is. Do I need to turn on the book cam again? Yeah. This is my copy of. This is the first science fiction thing I ever read. The Time Machine by H.G. Wells, abbreviated version, not the full thing. But later on, I did catch up with the whole thing and I read it. And yeah, history in my hands. अरे यार. Hmm. Munmun says, show the Hindu mythology books. The Hindu mythology books, which ones? Like there is the Bhagavad Gita. There is some couple of books by Devdutt Patnaik. There is a penguin book called the Hindu Book of Hindu Myths or something. Maybe I'll do a separate one on religion at some point of time. Nope, not easily accessible right now. Maybe they're not on this shelf even. Let's see. Heyman said, would like to see some philosophy books. Yes, I have some. Hold on. There is The Story of Philosophy by Will Durant. This is basically a kind of history there's so much dust on this. This is a history of philosophy. There is Bertrand Russell's History of Western Philosophy. In all honesty, this is not my book. It belongs to a cousin of mine, and he lent it to me, and I never returned it. I don't think he needs it either. I forgot I left the mic. Mm. Right. Mm. Anyway, right. That's all that strikes me right now as far as philosophy books is concerned. Maybe I can. Arumugam says, what books do you recommend to someone who has never picked up non school related books? I don't actually, because I think, hold on. I don't recommend books to people who have never read books outside the school's curriculum because I think the first thing they need to do is figure out what they like. And if they don't know what they like, and I recommend them a book that they don't like, then they will maybe come to the conclusion that they should not read books. So, the first question to someone who has never read outside of the school curriculum is, what do you enjoy? What are the things you like? What are your hobbies? Do you like sports, movies? You know, so if they say movies, then you should recommend them movie related books. If they say sports, give them sports biographies and stuff like that. And that's the better way to improve their range of interests. One says, who is the author of Secret, Such a Fraud? It was not written by one person. There were a whole lot of contributors to it, and the Secret documentary is also you'll see all the people who are part of it. They're all self-help book authors, somewhat semi-religious. Vedant asks, have you read Peter Singer? No, I cannot say I have. Ravi Kumar says, joined in late. Have you read The Selfish Gene and what is your view on that? Though I was late but it changed my perspective completely. Yes, I have read The Selfish Gene. I read The Selfish Gene, then I read a couple of other books by Dawkins also. He's a great science communicator. Not someone whom I recommend as an atheist writer, but he's a good science communicator. That is, after all, his job. But yeah, there is also The River Out of Eden, The Blind Watchmaker, and some other books by him. Yes. Telu Telu Abhinay says, have you read Thinking Fast and Thinking Fast, Thinking Slow? Have I, or have I read Blink? I don't remember. I don't remember reading this book, although there is a chance that I may have. Nazo says, I loved The Time Machine, and there was a great movie version made in the 70s. Yes, and also a great movie version made in more recent times, also. That is also a great movie. Kunal says much better than Chetan Bhagat. Say on like which book? What are you talking about? Saurav Devnath says any Bengali books. Let me just not put up screen thing because I have to bend every time. I'm afraid of hitting the mic. Saurav Devnath says any Bengali books? No, Saurav, I don't read Bengali. My mother reads Bengali books, and there are a bunch of Bengali books in the other room, but they're not mine. They belong to my mother. हेमंत says नॉन फिक्शन बुक recommendations. हेमंत इस पूरे वीडियो में वही सब किया recommend. वीडियो को शुरू से देख लेना. Shreya says, we were told to read that secret during our IIT JEE prep days. It had such a negative impact on my mind that I started feeling depressed just because I wasn't able to apply it in real life. Yes, that is also something that may happen because you think that if you cannot get yourself to believe that you can do better because of, sociological reasons, then that there is something wrong with you. And that is also an adverse effect of self help literature. Nazu says, is there any particular translation publisher that you would recommend for first time reading of Bhagavad Gita? Yes, I would actually recommend the Penguin translation. Oof. Here, it's a blue book. It's called simply the Bhagavad Gita. Camera. It's simply called the Bhagavad Gita, and it's translated by Bibek Debroy. It's very simple. There is no commentary. Like Gita Para stuff has pages and pages of Mahatmya. This is simply on the left page, you will find the shlokas, and on the right page, you will find the English translation. So that is all there is. And for someone who's just starting, you can read this book. Vairu says Sapiens. Pretty sure a lot of people here might have read it, but that book sealed the deal of my transition from Hindu atheism to atheism. Same here. Same here. Shreyas says, instead of working on why I feel bad, I started feeling guilty that I feel bad and I can't just magically think about good things to change my life. Yes. Sometimes you can't think positive thoughts because life isn't positive for you. And it's a function of privilege to say that everyone should be able to think positive. अभी जो हमारे देश में चल रहा है, उसको लेके भी कितने लोग बोलते हैं ना, पॉजिटिव सोचो, हमेशा गलत बात क्यों करते हो? अबे तुम्हारे लाइफ में फ़र्क नहीं पड़ रहा मतलब ये नहीं है कि किसी और की लाइफ में फ़र्क नहीं पड़ रहा. So a lot of motivational literature actually forces people towards toxic positivity. You might find that a lot of Indian motivational influencers are actually secretly right wing, or rather, even if they don't identify as right wing, they keep peddling right wing nonsense, and there's a direct relationship between that. Nishan says, "Hi Vimo, have you read any communist or Marxist literature? What was your worldview after reading them?" I don't think I have read any Marxist literature, but I'm not sure what you mean by Marxist literature. Something that directly advocates the Marxist worldview or a communist worldview? I don't know. I may have at some point. Hachiman says, an offbeat one I really enjoyed was Gilgamesh by Stephen Mitchell. Okay. Vishwa says, history of Western philosophy is baked in with a lot of opinions from the writer, yet a good starting book who is new to Western philosophy. Yeah. I would not say that any of the listen, when I am recommending books, I don't mean that you I don't mean that this is the definitive book on this subject. Myself pointed out that there are some books I even don't agree with, but I would still to like people to read them because I think people should read this book and then that book also, so that they can come to their own conclusions. The idea is to diversify your intake of information so that you are not under the impression that only one thing is true. Kunal says, what is your demographic of YouTube, especially the age group? वही जो यूट्यूब का यूजुअल होता है. आई एम वेरी डिसअपॉइंटेड समटाइम्स कि यूट्यूब पे मेरा डेमोग्राफिक मेरे इंस्टाग्राम के डेमोग्राफिक जैसा नहीं है. इंस्टाग्राम पे माई डेमोग्राफिक इज 50-50 मेल फीमेल, miraculously enough, because that is not what happens on most handles. YouTube पे the audience is predominantly young men or adult men or a few middle-aged men. I don't know if this is because women are not watching or if women have not identified their gender on YouTube. But yeah, that is how it is. I would recommend everyone here to tell people to subscribe to this channel, especially if they're women. I want a balanced audience. यश says चेतन भगत की कोई बुक है आपके पास? हाँ है ना. आई हैव. यहाँ नहीं है वैसे, उस शेल्फ में है. रुको दिखाता हूँ. आई हैव. बुक कैंप बन हो गया. I have three mistakes of my life and one night at the call center. And I have read neither of them because I have read Five Point Someone and I kind of liked it when it first came out. And these books I could not really finish. I think I started one of these. One night at a call center I started, but I could not finish it. And that is the limit of my extent of my Chetan Bhagat awareness. I would rather keep Time Machine over here. Telu says Godfather book versus movie. Which did you like more? Funny story. I have not read the Godfather novels or watched the Godfather films. I have a friend who is a huge Godfather fan, and yeah, I haven't seen it. Maybe I will sometime. Vedant says, I think you should try reading Animal Liberation by Peter Singer, a good intro to vegan philosophy as an ethical issue. Thank you. I'll add it to my list. Nazo says Dawkins' Magic of Reality is a nice one to start with. Yeah, Magic of Reality is also very nice. I keep saying Dawkins should stop the atheism stuff and just focus on science communication. Sagar says, sorry, just hopped in. Have you read, do you recommend any Neil Stephenson book if you haven't already talked about it? Neil Stephenson's Snow Crash is on my reading list, but I have not read it. And I'm not sure if I have read anything else by him either. Monmon says, Vimo, let us know which book you will take up. We shall read too. That's actually a great idea. That's actually a great idea. Book club sort of stuff, right? Like we'll start. I'll recommend a book at the beginning of the month. You all can get it. We will read it by the end of the month, and then we will have a episode where we all come together and talk about the thing that we read. Nice idea. Yash says, any Hindi literature? बहुत कम है यश. Sorry, I myself feel bad about the fact that almost 100% of my collection is English language books. Dharmesh says, have you read Neil Postman's book Technopoly? No, I have not. Saurav says, any books on history of science like J.D. Bernal's History in Science? I have books on the philosophy of science, but the history of science I have never really been interested in because I have seen documentaries about stuff and YouTube पे भी काफी कुछ मिल जाता है. Shreyas says, I think he means Thinking Fast and Slow by Kahneman, Behavioral Economics. Okay. Do you have any books of Arundhati Roy? No, I have not. I think like I have read at least some of her books, but I don't have any in my collection because probably I read them in libraries when I was in college. टिट्टू किट्टू से सर लॉजिक को स्ट्रॉन्ग करने के लिए कोई अच्छी बुक बताएं. टिट्टू किट्टू लॉजिक को स्ट्रॉन्ग करने के लिए लोगों से बातें करो और यूट्यूब पे डिबेट्स वगैरह को देखो. बुक्स से तुमको थियोरेटिकल नॉलेज मिल जाएगी पर द काइंड ऑफ लॉजिकल लाइक देयर आर ऑब्वियसली लाइक कॉलेज में लॉजिक के कोर्स होते हैं, मैंने भी किया हुआ है. बट मुझे लॉजिक के बारे में वहाँ से जितना नहीं पता चला, उससे ज़्यादा पता चला डिबेट्स और डिस्कशंस को देखकर. सो दैट इज़ अ बेटर मेथड आई थिंक. Nazu says, do you have any children's books in your collection? Any poetry? I don't really read poetry. And children's books, yes, I have a lot of children's books. I just recommended one in the course of my recommendation series today. It was called Children of the Lamp. Other than that, yeah, I don't know if I have. Eman says, balance wadi. Telu says, have you read Everybody Lies? No, Telu, I have not. Mm, the Batman Begins says, "Bhai, don't read these books. Waste of life." Sudipta says also YouTube does not give non-binary options, so that's one by yes, maybe. Shreya says, हाँ 50% of the questions Ravish Kumar gets nowadays is माना आप सही इश्यूज पे बात कर रहे हो बिकॉज अभी भी लोग डिनाई कर सकते हैं ना बट आप इतने नेगेटिव क्यों इन लोगों को पूछना चाहिए अगर तुम्हारे घर में आग लगी है और एक आदमी तुमसे कह रहा है कि तुम्हारे घर में आग लगी है और दूसरा बोल रहा है डोंट वरी कुछ नहीं हुआ है एक आदमी पॉजिटिव बातें कर रहा है एक आदमी नेगेटिव बातें कर रहा है कौन ज़्यादा ज़रूरी है कौन किसकी बात सुननी चाहिए और किसकी बात को इग्नोर करना चाहिए और किसको झापड़ मारना चाहिए Eamon says, I haven't watched or read Godfather either. Yes. The Batman Begins says, only read 5 Point Someone. That is good. I was in college or in school. Yeah, I was, I think, in my first. Wait, when did I read this? Yeah, about 15 years ago, I think. Batman Begins says, suggestion, you can't hurt me. Hmm. Confused Ape says, book club is a great idea. Great. We shall work on this. I'll plan it out. I'm a very chaotic person, but I'll plan this out. Maybe. Batman Begins says, you can't hurt me by David Goggins. Okay. Munmun says, start with a 100 to 150 page book. Okay. But I'm probably going to recommend ebooks. How will I know how many pages they are? Titu says, sir, logic strong. अच्छा दोबारा डेविल मोन says ग्राफिक नॉवल recommendations. मैंने अभी एक ही ग्राफिक नॉवल मेंशन किया है वो है जॉट होल्ड ऑन फिर से दिखा देता हूँ किधर है जॉट हाँ हियर बुक क्या की जरूरत नहीं है जॉट by Scott McCloud is the book I was recommending. It's a graphic novel. Subhranshu says Logic for Dummies is a good book. Hemant says, can you show philosophy of science books? Actually, only one book. It's called The Philosophy of Science. And philosophy of science. Not sure I have it here. Maybe नीचे वाले shelf में होगा कहीं. But it's simply called The Philosophy of Science. It's a very thin book. Sagar says, I recommend Tracy Smith's Life on Mars. It's a sci-fi poetry book. She was poet laureate of the US and her father worked on the Hubble telescope. Nice. I'll add it. Saurav says, what is your opinion about the God delusion? It's an interesting beginner level book for young people who are struggling with their religious beliefs, but I would not call it a high quality book for atheists. Titu says, thanks, Subhanshu sir. Vedant says, have you heard of Alex O'Connor, Cosmic Skeptic? Makes philosophy really approachable. Yes, I watch his videos also, and I actually learn a lot from him. Sudipta says, it's really easy to do book clubs on Discord. Make each chapter or a bunch a channel name. Hmm. You can also have audio chats there. श्रेयस सेज भक्त बोलेगा घर में आग लगी है तो प्रॉब्लम क्या है शास्त्रों के हिसाब से आग प्यूरिफाई करती है घर में गंदगी ही इतनी थी कि मोदी जी को आग लगानी पड़ी सबके बोले के लिए तेलू सेज डू यू हैव एनी ऑटोबायोग्राफीज विथ यू आई हैव आइसिमोव्स ऑटोबायोग्राफी होल्ड ऑन वेयर इज इट It's called I Asimov because one of his most prominent books was I Robot. So that's why it's called I Asimov. Let me just stop the book cam so that yeah, that's better. The Batman Begins says the type of scenario in our country and violence streak, this will end in the bloodshed of thousands of people will die. We are sitting on a heap of hate and one small fire will light the fire. That is what it seems like, man. But I hope better sense prevails. I hope at least pressure from opposition and the international community helps. Siddharth says, Sup, Vimo, hi Siddharth. Subhanshu Singh says, you should read Mass Psychology of Fascism to see how fascism works and how C plays a role in T. Hmm. Nishan says, any communalism issue books? I had recommended some a few years ago. There is a book called Hindutva by, hold on, I can't find it right now. I can't find it right now. The book is called Hindutva. It's by Jyotirmay Sharma, and it's about Hindutva. Dhirubhai is here. Hi, Dhirubhai. Thank you for becoming a member. Saurav says, is there any good book on horror genre? I don't read horror. I don't like horror. Uh, Confused Ape says, have you read A Manual for Creating Atheist by Peter? No, no, that is on my list actually. I want to read that book, but I have not yet. The Batman Begins says, I like your table and setup and have same bookshelf, 6 feet long and 42, 44 bolts to assemble. Yes. Subhanshu says, how sex plays a role in it. Sorry, it is sex. What is? Oh, acha, acha. Haan, got it. Yash says, Vimod, did you think tech fascism exists? Or if exists, did you know any good book on it? Tech fascism, the idea that technology aids. I think there are books on it, but I haven't read any. I think a good place to start might be a book called, and this is not a book that I have read, but I've heard about it. A good place to start might be, uh, what's it called? Surveillance Capitalism. Surveillance Capitalism is a new book that has come out. It is on my list. I have not read it yet. Maybe I will. But if you want to jump ahead of the queue and read that book, we should. Devil Moon says, have you read all the books on your shelves? No, man. Some of these books are bad books and I could not finish them. Some are new books and I haven't started them. Some are books that I gave up halfway because I was bored. Ravi Kumar says, any suggestion on the history evolution of Hinduism? History and evolution of Hinduism. There are, like, if you, yeah, I'm sure there must be, but nothing comes to mind right away. Uh, are there? Hmm. Religion section. Nope, nothing comes to mind. Subrancho says inventing reality is really good. Batman Begins says technology is just a mere tool of luxury if it is available for masses. Vedant says, is there a good way to find peer reviewed papers on some topics of interest? I do follow the popular journals, yet I use Google Scholar, but if there is a better way to find research papers. I asked Science is Dope ka Pranav Radhakrishnan and he recommended a website to me. I think it's called Sci-Hub, SCIHUB. If you can find it on Sci-Hub, that should be like it's a free resource. There are other sites where you have to become a paying member or have some kind of accreditation, etc. But Sci-Hub should help. SCIHUB. Zia says, which book would you say that you have read most or have gone back to more often than any other? Have I? There is a book called there is a book called Curious Lives by Richard Bach. It contains a bunch of stories about animals. And one of those stories is called Bajeron and Daniel. They're ferrets. Ferrets is a small furry animal. Bajeron is a ferret. Daniel is a ferret, and Bajeron wants to be a writer, and Daniel also wants to be a writer. And this is about how they both found their voices as writers. It's a very like it's a story I go back to often whenever I'm like, मैं क्यों writer हूँ मैं क्या लिख रहा हूँ it it's kind of a compass that points me in the right direction as far as why we write is concerned. So the book is called Curious Lives. The author is Richard Bach, and the story in that book is called Bajeron and Daniel, and that is the one I keep going back to. Munmun says, "Show us the posters behind. You can see them. Like I turned off the book cam, otherwise I would have taken the thing and showed it to you. Hold on, is that still possible? Let me try. Yeah, hold on. I can actually. Right. So while I'm here, I'll also show you my other bookshelf. So these are the posters. Yeah. Yeah. So this one is Inspector Steel. Then there is Super Commando Dhruv. Then there is Tiranga right under my good night. Then there is Bhokal, Nagraj, and Fighter Tours. Uh, सुदीप तो सर है साइहब इज पेपर पायरेसी दे आर टॉकिंग अबाउट फाइंडिंग पेपर्स पहले ढूंढना पड़ता है फिर तो प्राइसिंग का इशू होता अच्छा आई वुड नो देन confused ape says any Stephen Hawking book. I have a brief history of time which I read when I was in college, and then there's another one which I never picked up, but I've only read that one book by Stephen Hawking. Do you have any books by Orwell? I have 1984 and Animal Farm, both. Have you read the book Metamorphosis? No, I have not. Human says waiting for you to write a book. अरे उससे याद आया. Hold on, I wanted to share something with you guys. Thank you for reminding me. So there's this story called Yugantar that I have been writing for a few years now. And Yugantar is a fantasy novel set in a secondary Earth. And I have actually made a map of that world, and I wanted to share that map with you guys. Hold on, how do I share? Share screen, window, share. Right? Can you see this map? Let me zoom in a little bit. Right. So this is a map of the world that my story is set in. It's called The World of Yogantar, and it has a Rakshas dominion. The part at the bottom here is कहाँ गया? उफ, मुश्किल है. The part at the bottom here is called Dev Bhumi. You see the flying ships. Then this entire part is the Rakshas dominion. Then this forest is called Van, and there is a small mountain area here called Kush. This pink tree is called Mool. It is the first tree of this forest. Then there is a snowy area and the old log and a lot of stuff. So this is the world that my story is set in, and I am writing this. When I do write this book, you will get to read. You'll get to read it, and maybe I'll talk more about it. Um, Sudipto says, "Are Sai okay already ho gaya." Ayman says, "Those fictional people built what? What built?" World building, let's go. Fantasy Unleashed says, as a writer, you must be in your house or sitting down on a chair for long durations. For your health concern, do you work out or go for a walking at least? Are you my dad? Because this question clearly is from my dad. No, man. I think I do realize that I need to pay more attention to to being fit. But yeah, I don't do it much, and I should. I agree. Milind Sonone, thank you once more for a super chat. Would you recommend audio-visual method or only hard copy books? Because I try to read a book, but I soon dive into trance. I would not recommend visual because what visual does is that it puts you in a non-participatory mode. If a movie is playing and you don't pay attention, the movie still goes on. Like people say, na, time is money. Time is not money. If you don't spend time, time still goes away. So films are these days you can rewind and pause etc, but by and large writing is a participatory thing. You have to be actively engaged in the act of reading in order for it to work. So I would not recommend video over text ever. I think reading books is still the better way of actively using your brain and getting better as a result of reading. But If that doesn't work for you, I would recommend maybe audiobooks. Audiobooks work out for a lot of people who think that reading is not for them. Video, not so much, because you're sitting in one place and your eye glazes over or you get distracted or something. But audiobooks work for a lot of people. So maybe you can try that. Again, thanks for the money, Milind. Means a lot. Hemant says, spoiler alert, The Theory of Everything and The Brief History of Time are the same book with a different cover. For beginners, I recommend Theory of Everything. Mm, Zia says, wow, looks very impressive. Thank you, Zia. Subhanshu says, Socratic dialogues are really epic. Yes. Mood kya hai? Says, hey Vimo, a recommendation from my side, Severance is a new sci-fi series and it is brilliant. Okay. Okay. श्रेया says full GOT vibes. बस GRRM का जितना मोटी बुक्स मत लिख देना और उसमें जितना टाइम मतलब अरे जॉर्ज आर मार्टिन का क्या है पता है? ही राइट्स ऑन अ डॉस कंप्यूटर. उसके ऊपर वो और कुछ नहीं कर सकते. वो ब्राउज़र नहीं खोल सकते, वो वर्ड को और एक कुछ काम नहीं कर सकते. ही कांट मल्टीटास्क. ही कैन ओनली राइट. सो आई थिंक ही लूज़ेस हिमसेल्फ. ही कीप्स राइटिंग. इसका खानदान, उसके खानदान का रिलेशनशिप उसके खानदान के साथ, उसकी 4th कज़िन 7 टाइम्स रिमूव्ड का छठा बच्चा जिससे शादी कर रहा है, उसके मामू के चाचा के ताऊ ने इसके दादाजी को मारा था वगैरह वगैरह. He really gets lost in the lore of this world. I have a friend called Hemant, and he told me that he lost interest because of it. Like he said ki I love the story, I want to follow the characters, but I can't stand iska rishtedar, uska rishtedar, uska rishtedar. Like he goes too deep. And George R. R. Martin is a free spirit. If you tell him this, he'll say fuck off, don't read then, I don't care, I like doing this. And the reason behind that is George R. R. Martin used to be a screenwriter. Screenwriters have to keep a lot of things in mind when they're writing a story. They can't exercise their imagination to the fullest. And when George R. R. Martin was writing Game of Thrones, he said, "वो सब हो गया, अभी मैं अपने मन का करूँगा." So when people tell him now that he's being too over indulgent, he doesn't care, and I don't think he should. It's his book, and he should write whatever however he wants. And I think that's what I am also going to do. Although I am probably not going to write about fifth relative 7 times removed stuff. By the way, in my stories, Rakshasas are the good guys and the gods are assholes. Spoiler alert. Shreya says full. Okay, sorry. Ho gaya. Any plans for graphic novels? I have written some and I have written some more. Maybe they will come out in a couple of years. Maybe they won't. I don't know. Like, I don't know what the publisher is going through right now. Nazo says, have you ever read Ray Bradbury, Dandelion Wine? Something Wicked This Way Comes? Yes, I have. I love Ray Bradbury. Yash says, Vimo, will you write for any film or series? Yash, there is no plan of doing so right now. I have the same problem with writing collaborative stuff because other people tell you what to write, and I like to exercise my full imagination in my own time. Param says, any books from Dan Dennett? No, I have not read Dan Dennett. Batman Begins has suggestion for fitness. Daily running, resistance training. I lost 26 kilograms, now 72 kgs. Okay. Yash says Socrates is a clown. I don't like him. Aditya Singh Gohil says Dune is a very overrated, so prefer and wait for movie. Dune is overrated? No, man. Dune is one of the most accessible science fiction things ever written. Like Lord of the Rings is hard to understand for me because the English is dated, and Tolkien wasn't even writing for a general audience. He was writing for his own kids. But Dune I found to be very lucid. Monmon says, will you ever write historical fiction? I doubt it, Monmon. I doubt it. The crazy guy says, hey, Vimo. Hi, crazy guy. Subhanshu says, so you like Nietzsche? I like Nietzsche. What gave that away? I didn't even mention Nietzsche right now. Vedant says there is a compilation of Bhagat Singh letters and articles named Why I Am an Atheist. I would really recommend everyone to check it out and get some insight into the legend's mind. Vedant, I have actually made, when I was a part of Epified, I made a video based on that essay. If you search for Epified Bhagat Singh, you will find that video in Hindi as well as English. Vishwa says Rakshasas are good and Devas are bad. Reminds me of old Avestan Persian take, Devas, Ahuras. Yes. Eman says, yeah, Vimo, body movement is important irrespective of what it is, but please don't listen to people giving fitness advice to lose weight. It's a scam. I don't have much weight to lose. Aditya Singh says the Bhagat Singh reader has reference to just jail diary. Subhanshu says for me it's Nietzsche and Sartre, and above all Buddha. Okay. Ahmad says no, he likes Upper. Okay, so guys, we have been doing this for 1 hour 20 minutes, and I thank everyone for joining. But I think I should end the live stream today. This is really getting to my. I don't want to say OCD because I probably don't have it, but everyone is on the OCD spectrum somewhere. I think it bothers me a lot that my face is not in the center of the screen and that this mic hand is showing, and that there are books behind me that are showing. I try extra hard to keep everything symmetrical, and today was anything but symmetrical. But thank you for joining. And okay, before going to comments, Shreyas says, have you seen an atheist YouTube channel called Dark Matter 2525? Please do if you haven't. I so want something like that here, as he mainly focuses on making fun of Abrahamic religions, as he should. Okay. So I'm not a huge fan of making fun of religion in order to spread atheism, because I don't think that sticks and it only causes people to double down on the religious ideas. I would rather talk to people about what they believe and why they believe. And I am, like, I keep ranting about edgy atheists, right? Like, I'm an atheist and I have a huge problem with edgy atheists. So I have not seen this channel. I'm not sure if it corresponds to the definition of edgy atheist that I just said. But I don't think making fun of things is going to help. This is going to be this. If this is going to be done, it is going to be done through conversations. Zia says in Europe, hold on. Milind has sent another 100 rupees. Milind says, would you find it interesting to write any MCU thing like based on 90 comics characters? Yeah, I do write comics, Milind. I have written a 10 book series called Ravanayan. I have written a couple of superhero stories for Holy Cow Entertainment. I don't know when it is all coming out, but if you want to read them, you can go over to holycow.in and buy Ravanayan. Thank you again for the super chat. Zia says, in your opinion, Vimao, do you find fiction books a waste of time or feel like that time could be spent producing something more rewarding than just entertainment? Not at all. I'm a fiction writer. I think fiction provides much more food for thought than non-fiction does. Non-fiction books tend to be, if they're not history or philosophy, they tend to be manuals about how to do things. Fiction is about how we think. Fiction is about Fiction, on a very basic level, is about being human. There is nothing more rewarding than entertainment, which is why I don't want to use the word entertainment as just entertainment. But entertainment is one of the highest pursuits that the human mind can engage in. Eman says she will DM me. Okay, right. So I made a reel about edgy atheists, said Eman. Okay. Milind says, okay, thanks, Vimo. Thanks, Milind. Funky Sam says, are you an MCU fan excited for Doctor Strange 2? I'm a little meh these days. थोड़ा मार्वल फटीग हो रहा है मुझे. इतना देख चुका है, कोई कितना देखेगा अभी. I like, in fact, because of all this, I realized that I should read more. I used to be such a voracious reader. I just talked about this earlier in the video, but I used to be a voracious reader who does not read that much anymore, and I think I should read more. So I am really considering cutting down on video consumption and spending hours every day reading books once more. But again, thank you for the last time, guys. I'm going to end the live stream now. Thank you, everyone, for joining. Thank you for doing this. This was a strange and weird thing that I did on this channel, and I hope that you liked it. If you liked it, after the live stream ends, go to the video and comment under it, because the live stream chat does not become visible for quite some time. Comment under the video telling me what you liked about this, what you didn't like about it, and whether or not you would like to see something like this in the future. And if yes, what kind of stuff, like focused on a specific book genre, not books, something else. Talk about toys. There are a bunch of toys here. And yeah, thank you for watching today. This was a lot of fun. I will see you next on Saturday at 10 p.m. And we will talk about the usual stuff. I'll be taking callers and stuff. If you have not subscribed, please subscribe. If you want to support my work monetarily, you can make a one-time donation at vimo.stck.me. If you want to support me on Patreon, you can do so at patreon.com/vimo, or you can become a member of this channel. You can become a member and get access to uh, uh, emoji and a badge next to your name, and access to audio chat on my Discord server. So I'll see you there if you choose to become a member. If not, Cool, cool. No issues. Everything is still free. Marty Mari says, I'm so excited for Yugantar. I just binged the podcast episodes available. They were so good. The stream was so good. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you so much for saying that. She's talking about the Yugantar ka podcast, which I have not updated and I don't think I am going to update in the coming few months either. But if you want to listen to it, you can do so at mythofiction.com. I'm mythofiction.com. That's the Yugantar podcast. Chalo. Bye bye finally. अभी तुमसे मिलता हूँ अगले सैटरडे बाय